Good evening. I have a few minutes, so I thought, let me do my segment for the week while I'm waiting for my client who is running late. So, something I want to talk about is dual agency. Now, some people are going to say, oh, I know what that is. That's when you're working on both sides of a transaction as the realtor. Yes and no. So, yeah, if you hire me to represent you as a seller or a landlord in a transaction, yes, I am representing you. I'm working towards securing your best interests in a real estate transaction. Now, let's say I throw an open house and someone walks through the door and they say, wow, love this house and I really like you as an agent. Can you represent me? So yes, that would be dual agency on my part, right? Because I'd be representing both the buyer and the seller. But did you know that let's say I list a house for sale and then I get one or two of my colleagues to actually, maybe they're going to host an open house for me and I'm not going to be there, right? And one of them is so fortunate to have a ready, willing, and able buyer walk through the door and they say, hey, I love you, I love the house, let's go, represent me. Well, that's still dual agency. Why? Because we both work for the same brokerage. Even if I got someone who perhaps they work for Berkshire Hathaway in another office, that's happened too. Again, it's dual agency because ultimately we all have the same broker of record. So it's not to say that it's a good or a bad thing. It's simply different. And there are times where I have certainly represented both sides on a transaction. Commonly that happens with rentals, right? Because when I list a home, condo, house for rent, most of the time I'm going to get those leads and then I'm going to respond. I'm going to show the property and hopefully I'm going to present a qualified tenant to my landlord client, right? So that makes me dual on that transaction. But sometimes a home can be for sale. And again, I capture the leads that come off of those websites. And that means then I'm going to represent both the buyer and the seller. Does everyone love being dual agent in a transaction? No. And there are plenty of agents who have their own theories about whether or not they want to be dual on a transaction and represent both the buyer and the seller. Ultimately, it's something for kind of everyone to decide. So sometimes I've come across a seller who said, you know what, I just don't want you to represent any of the buyers. And then that's when I can say to them, you know what? I understand. I want to be able to fully represent you in your best interest in the transaction. So I'm not going to take on any of the buyers. There are other times when there will be dual agency merely because Berkshire Hathaway, we have plenty of offices in the state of New Jersey. So perhaps someone who works in another agency or a different office is going to represent a buyer. So then that's also dual agency. Is one thing better than the other? Not necessarily. But one thing I can say for sure is sometimes I've had buyers reach out and they want to speak specifically to the listing agent because they think it's going to give them an advantage in a transaction. If you're one of those buyers, I'm here to tell you, not going to happen. Ultimately, I took a listing with my seller, and even if I agree to work in a dual capacity, it's never to give one person an advantage over the other. When you're a dual agent, you really just have to be kind of impartial in a way. You're really just merely stating the facts. So if one person wants to offer one price for a home or a situation, and another person wants to accept that offer, they certainly have the flexibility to do so. But as a dual agent, I couldn't give one person an advantage over the other. So I wouldn't be able to say, you know what, buyer, my seller will actually take a little bit less. So yeah, let's go ahead and get your lowball offer in. And if you know me, you know I don't like lowball offers, right? No, we can't do something like that. So I do sometimes hesitate when I hear people say, oh yeah, I just want to speak with the listing agent, because you're not going to get an unfair advantage. Not at all. That's not the right or ethical, or that's not a good thing to do. So I'm trying to keep it brief. There are definitely some more details that we could discuss, but I just wanted to give you some basic information regarding dual agency. Now, what I'm going to do is, let me give you a preview. So while I'm waiting for my client, who's running a few minutes late, I'm actually outside of Lotus 315, which is a mixed-use property. So on this first level, you can see, I believe it's over 44,000 square feet of commercial space. At this time, we are entertaining anyone who is interested in opening a business location here in this building. One thing I will say for sure is we've got plenty of parking out here. We have tons of residents in the area. And actually, this is poised to be a really great opportunity, not only for the residents of Lotus who live above, in the 7 levels above the commercial space, but honestly, this is going to be an asset to the community. There are several both high-rise and low-rise buildings on this block. And then if we continue down South Harrison Street, we actually are going to run right into Orange and then South Orange. So we're definitely in a superb location. And let me just show you something. If you happen to be a business that is looking for a space where you can have a drive-through, let me just show you this. Do you see how they are all set with drive-through space for this property? So if you're looking to open some sort of a food chain or something where you'd need drive-through access, maybe a bank, there's definitely the possibility of having a drive-through at this location. So if you own a business and you're looking for another location, or you know someone who has been looking for a location for their business, please connect them to me. I'm happy to give them a up close and personal tour of the space. It's about 44,000 square feet. And it's tons of raw potential. So I believe my client has arrived, so I'm going to get going. But I hope you found this information on dual agency helpful. And as always, just feel free to give me a call. Take care.